She shouldn't have been there. No one saw the little girl at first, curled small and silent in the golden glow of the Delacroix Hotel's Christmas tree. 8 years old, or maybe younger. Her jacket was too thin for December, sleeves chewed at the cuffs. She hugged her knees beneath a mountain of blinking lights and glass ornaments, the only patch of warmth in a world designed to keep her out. The marble beneath her was cold and hard, but she did not shiver. She was practiced at being invisible. The lobby sparkled, all gold leaf and shining floor, every inch dressed for people who had never worried about winter. Somewhere down the hallway, laughter and music spilled from the ballroom, music that sounded like a promise kept to everyone but her. Waiters swept past, eyes fixed on nothing. The concierge looked through her. No one expected to find a child asleep beneath a Christmas tree, not in a place like this. But stories have a way of showing up where they don't belong. The girl waited, counting the seconds between songs, the way kids do when they have nothing left to count. She watched the glass doors fog up with every burst of laughter. The world behind them was bright, full of people who wore kindness only on special occasions. She pressed her cheek to her knees, fighting sleep. She hadn't meant to come inside. She just followed the light, her hands numb and empty, her eyes stinging with cold and hope. The night was supposed to be magic. She'd waited on the curb as the city darkened, watching for Santa, waiting for a miracle. But the only thing that found her was the wind. All she wanted was to see the tree. Maybe, if she believed hard enough, if she wished quiet enough, someone would leave a gift with her name on it. Maybe tonight, for once, she wouldn't be forgotten. But the tree was a fortress of glass and ribbon, and the people in the ballroom were a world away. Upstairs, Ethan Delacroix, man of the hour, master of ceremonies, billionaire by accident and ambition, stood at the edge of the party. Every eye in the room had tracked him all night, searching for some hint of warmth, some proof that he was more than a collection of numbers and headlines. He smiled when he was supposed to. He shook hands, delivered his speech, toasted to another year of miracles. But his heart wasn't in it. He saw his reflection in a dozen surfaces, polished glass, the faces of strangers, the bottom of his untouched glass. All the trappings of wealth, none of the comfort. He envied the guests their easy joy, their certainty that the world would spin kindly into morning. As the party dwindled, Ethan slipped away, searching for quiet. The ballroom doors closed behind him. The hush of the lobby wrapped around him like a second skin. That's when he saw her. At first, he thought she was a trick of the light, a shadow, a memory, something left over from the year he tried to forget. But then she moved, and the spell broke. She looked up, startled, her eyes huge and dark as midnight. She froze. Not with fear, exactly, but with the expectation of being shooed away. She pulled her jacket tighter, the motion practiced. He noticed then how small she was. How little she seemed to take up. "Hey," he said, voice soft, careful not to startle her. "You all right?" The girl nodded. Or tried to. Her chin barely moved. She looked past him, towards the doors, as if weighing her chances. Her hands gripped a scrap of notebook paper, a letter, he guessed, creased and worn from being opened and closed too many times. Ethan crouched, slow, the way you do with lost animals or wounded birds. He was used to closing deals, not comforting children. He had no idea what to say. All his money, all his power, useless in the face of a girl who had nothing but a wish. "What's your name?" he asked. The girl pressed her lips together. He saw the struggle in her eyes, the hope and the shame, old friends for children like her. She shook her head. He tried again. "Are you waiting for someone?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Santa," she whispered. But he didn't come. Ethan's throat tightened. He glanced at the clock, past midnight, Christmas now, technically. He looked back at her, really looked, and saw every holiday he'd ever spent alone staring back at him. She shifted, blinking hard, as if tears were a luxury she couldn't afford. Her voice was smaller than before. "I just wanted to see the tree up close. I'll go. I'm sorry." He shook his head gently. "No need. You're not in trouble." He looked around. The lobby was empty, the world outside locked in ice. You hungry? A pause, then the smallest nod. He stood and offered his hand. She stared at it like it was a trick. For a moment, he thought she might bolt. But after a long silence, she put her cold hand in his. Ethan led her toward the hotel's little cafe, closed for the night, but nothing in this building was really closed to him. He waved to the night manager, who hurried to unlock the doors, eyeing the girl with the wariness people reserve for the desperate. Hot chocolate? Ethan asked. The girl hesitated, then nodded again. He watched her watch him, waiting for the catch, the price. He ordered extra marshmallows. As she sipped the chocolate, she loosened her grip on the note. He caught a glimpse of childish handwriting. Dear Santa, I've been good. Please bring my mom back. Or just let her call me. I miss her. I'll leave the tree on all night so you can find me. He looked away, giving her privacy she hadn't asked for. His chest ached with all the things he couldn't fix. You staying somewhere tonight? He asked quietly. She didn't answer. Ethan sat back, the night stretching before him like a question he'd never thought to ask. He had built an empire out of solving impossible problems. But this was the kind that broke you if you let it. Somewhere in the city, the world celebrated itself. Here, beneath the dying glow of a Christmas tree, a billionaire and a little girl shared the kind of silence that feels like a prayer. And above them, the tree sparkled on, bearing witness to a miracle so small, most people would have missed it. Ethan sat in the hush of the hotel cafe, elbows on the table, watching the girl trace circles on the rim of her mug. Her shoulders hunched, as if she could disappear into the steam. The world outside was midnight blue, frost blooming across the glass. Somewhere down the hall, a vacuum hummed and faded. They were the only people awake in a building full of dreams. He didn't ask more questions. She didn't offer answers. There was an understanding between them, wordless and thin, that this was not a night for demands. After a while, she picked up the note and folded it carefully, tucking it into the inside pocket of her coat. She finished her chocolate. Marshmallow stuck to her chin. Ethan handed her a napkin. She wiped her face, looking suddenly much older. She looked up at him then, as if steeling herself for something. Are you the boss here? She asked, small and uncertain. Ethan almost smiled. Something like that. She studied him, measuring. Do you get presents on Christmas? He paused. For a moment, he wanted to lie, make it easy. But the truth felt safer. Not really. Not for a long time. She nodded, as if that made sense. Me neither. They sat in the quiet for a little while longer, two people sharing the loneliness that lingers after midnight. The girl's eyes grew heavy, her head nodding, the fight to stay awake slipping from her shoulders. Ethan realized then how small she was in the big armchair, how young, how out of place. You can sleep here for a bit, he said quietly. No one will mind. She shook her head, but her eyes didn't open all the way. I'm supposed to keep looking. For who? He asked, softer than before. She hugged her knees again. My mom. She said if I got lost, I should wait by the biggest tree I could find. She said Christmas was magic, but magic's just for people with homes. Ethan swallowed. His own reflection caught in the dark window, older and more tired than he remembered. He thought of all the things he could buy and all the things he couldn't return to. The way his mother used to hum carols late at night, the smell of cinnamon and sugar, the sharp ache of wishing for things money could never mend. He didn't want to promise her anything. Not yet. But he knew, in the marrow of his bones, that leaving her here was impossible. What's your name? He tried again. The girl hesitated, then whispered. Mia. He nodded, her name like a secret slipped between them. I'm Ethan. Mia blinked slowly. Are you going to call the police? He considered. Not unless you want me to. I just want to make sure you're safe. Maybe we can figure something out together. She weighed his words, then nodded. a silent agreement forged in the emptiest hour of the night. Ethan stood, stretching the stiffness from his legs. Let's get you somewhere warm. Just for tonight. You can have my guest room. And breakfast in the morning, if you like pancakes. Her eyes flickered with suspicion, with hope, with a longing she barely dared show. She looked around, as if searching for some trap, some trick. But all she saw was a tired man, more lonely than dangerous, and a world that suddenly felt a little less sharp. Okay, she said, almost inaudible. He led her through the back halls, avoiding the lingering staff. Up the service elevator, silent, empty, safe. At his private suite, he let her enter first. The room was too grand for comfort. Soaring windows, white roses, a bed bigger than her old apartment. Mia shrank into herself at the threshold, one hand brushing the banister as if to make sure it was real. Ethan opened a closet, found a spare blanket, a sweater soft as clouds. He set them on the bed, careful not to crowd her. Bathrooms through there. Towels are clean. Use anything you need. Mia nodded, crossing to the window, gazing out at the city. So much light, so little warmth. Her breath fogged the glass. You ever wish for something, even when you know it won't come? Ethan almost laughed, but the sound was too brittle. Every year. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands still curled tight around her letter. If Santa comes, will you tell him where I am? He knelt beside her, voice gentle. I think, maybe, Santa needs a little help this year. But I'll try. She crawled beneath the blanket, still wearing her coat, eyes never quite closing. Don't leave, she murmured, softer than a prayer. He sat in the chair by the window, watching the city slow and the sky pale. Somewhere, in the hush before dawn, Mia's breathing evened out at last. Ethan watched over her, knowing this Christmas had already changed him more than any he could remember. In the gray light, with the tree's glow still shining below, Ethan realized, for some kids, miracles weren't about presents at all. They were just about not being forgotten. And as the first snow of Christmas morning began to fall, he made a silent promise, to Mia, to the little boy he used to be, to anyone who'd ever waited by a tree hoping someone would come. He would not let her wait alone. He would not let her wait alone. By the time dawn stretched pale and hesitant across the city, the suite had grown hushed and golden. Ethan hadn't slept. He watched Mia's small form beneath the blanket, the way her fingers curled tight around the letter, as if she was afraid even her dreams might try to take it from her. Downstairs, the lobby was already coming to life. Staff relighting the tree, guests returning from midnight mass, the world pretending last night never happened. But Ethan's world had changed. He moved quietly, making coffee, the rituals of morning a little softer, slower, as if not to wake the past. Mia stirred, blinking awake, startled for a second by the brightness, by the warmth. For a moment she almost smiled, the way children do before they remember themselves. She sat up, rubbing her eyes with the back of her hand. He set a plate on the bedside table. Pancakes, fresh fruit, syrup in a little glass cup. It's not much, he said, but it's tradition. She eyed the food, half suspicious, half hungry. You made this. I had some help, he said, glancing toward the empty hallway. But mostly, yes. She ate in silence, careful, as if the world might snatch it away if she was too quick. He sat nearby, reading the paper, pretending not to notice when she tucked a strawberry in her pocket for later. When she was done, she wiped her mouth with the sleeve of her coat. Do I have to leave now? No, he said. You can stay as long as you need. I have some calls to make today, but you're safe here. Would you like to talk to someone? Maybe about your mom. She shrank at the mention, shoulders up to her ears. She said not to talk to anyone I didn't trust. He nodded. You don't have to do anything you don't want. I'm just glad you're here. She looked away, twisting her letter. Sometimes people say they want to help, but really they just want to be heroes. Or they want you to disappear. He heard the weight behind those words, the kind of lesson a child shouldn't know. He kept his voice gentle. I'm not very good at being a hero, Mia. Most days I'm just trying not to mess things up. She almost smiled. It was gone in a blink. Later, as the morning brightened, Ethan made a few discreet calls. No police, not yet. Just a trusted friend at the city shelter, a private investigator he'd relied on before. People who understood how to move quietly, without headlines or questions. He looked up resources, missing persons, shelters, services for runaways. Each answer felt cold and official, miles from the reality of the frightened child dozing on his sofa. He found Mia sitting by the window, legs crossed, staring at the street far below. "Do you remember your address?" he asked, careful not to press. She shook her head. "We moved a lot. Sometimes my mom said it was for a fresh start. Sometimes it was just because we had to." He nodded, sitting beside her. "Do you want to try calling her? Or someone else?" Mia chewed her lip, thinking. Then, quietly, "She always said not to call unless it was safe. She said sometimes people listen in." Ethan felt something old and helpless stirring in his chest. "No one's listening here, Mia. Not unless you want them to." She nodded, silent again. He changed the subject, telling her about the time he burned pancakes as a boy, how his mother had laughed, how he still made them every Christmas even after she was gone. He talked about the hotel, the guests, the way the city changed with every snowfall. Slowly, Mia relaxed, letting herself listen, letting her guard slip a fraction. By afternoon, Ethan's suite felt transformed, less like a museum, more like a home. He caught Mia watching the television, entranced by an old holiday movie, mouthing the lines to herself as if trying them on for size. A knock at the door startled them both. Ethan stood, motioning her to stay put, and opened the door just enough to see his head of security, Mrs. Calloway, sharp-eyed, discreet. She glanced behind him, her voice low. "We have reporters in the lobby, sir. Something about last night's party. Someone said they saw a child with you." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Handle it. No names. And no one comes upstairs without my say-so." Calloway nodded. "Of course, sir." He closed the door gently, feeling the press of the outside world closing in. Mia watched him, eyes wide. "Am I in trouble?" He shook his head. "Not with me." She nodded, hugging her knees. "People always find out, even when you try to hide." He sat beside her again. "Let them look. You're not going anywhere you don't want to." For the first time, she believed him. As the city darkened, snow began to fall again, dusting the rooftops in clean white. Mia leaned against the glass, watching flakes spiral past the window, her breath fogging the pane. Ethan brought her a blanket, sitting quietly nearby. They didn't need to talk. Outside, the world spun on, hungry for stories and answers. Inside, Ethan made another silent promise. She would not be a headline. Not if he could help it. And somewhere in the city, as Christmas lights flickered in the cold, a tired woman searched for a little girl who still believed in miracles. And somewhere in the city, as Christmas lights flickered in the cold, a tired woman searched for a little girl who still believed in miracles. The hours that followed moved both quickly and not at all, the kind of day that hangs heavy in the bones. Mia slept in snatches, curled up on the corner of the sofa, her shoes left neatly at the foot, her letter always within reach. When she woke, Ethan was there, reading emails in the chair by the window, every so often glancing at her as if to make sure she was still real. The suite took on a strange new rhythm, half hotel, half sanctuary. Ethan's phone buzzed every few minutes with news from the world outside. Business deals, press inquiries, reminders of the life he'd built for himself, a world of meetings and negotiations that suddenly seemed smaller than the one unfolding in his living room. He answered only what he had to, the rest silenced, left to pile up like snow at the door. At lunch, he ordered room service. Grilled cheese, soup, a plate of little cookies with colored sugar. Mia ate quietly, never asking for seconds, but when Ethan offered the plate she accepted it with a grateful, shy nod. She was getting used to the warmth, but she never quite let herself settle in. He saw the way her eyes flicked to the door, the way she started at every knock. He found her, later, standing in the bathroom, looking at her own reflection. Her face was smudged, her hair tangled, and for a moment Ethan saw past the dirt and the fatigue and saw just a child, small and lost and afraid of what might come next. She tried to smooth her hair with her fingers, and he noticed her hands were trembling. "I can find you a brush," he said gently. She shrugged, pretending not to care. "It always gets messy again anyway." He hesitated, then asked, "Do you want a shower? Clean clothes?" He wasn't sure where the boundaries were, didn't want to push. Mia glanced at him, uncertain. Then, after a moment, "Maybe just the brush." He nodded and left her to her privacy, returning with a wooden hairbrush from the guest bathroom and a small bottle of lavender lotion. She took them, clutching the brush tight as if it might anchor her to this moment, to this fleeting sense of safety. When she emerged, her hair was a little neater, her cheeks a little brighter from scrubbing. She looked younger, suddenly, less like a stray and more like someone who belonged. The afternoon wore on. Ethan called the shelter again, describing Mia in careful, vague terms. No one had reported a missing girl matching her description. He pressed for more information, but the shelter worker's voice was patient and tired. "This time of year, they're all missing someone." He hung up, frustration simmering under his skin. Mia sat by the window, tracing shapes in the condensation. "Do you ever get scared?" she asked suddenly, voice soft and far away. Ethan considered. "All the time," he admitted. "Usually when I think I'm supposed to have all the answers and realize I don't." She nodded, as if this made sense. "My mom used to say the bravest thing you can do is wait. Not run. Just wait." "That's good advice," he said. "But hard." She glanced down at her letter, unfolding it, smoothing the creases. He watched her read the words, lips moving in silent hope. "Do you miss your mom?" she asked, not looking up. Ethan's reply was quiet. "Every day." They sat together, the city below bustling with its own kind of loneliness. He wondered how many windows hid stories like theirs, how many children searched for a sign, how many grown-ups forgot what it felt like to need one. Just before dusk, the phone rang again. This time, it was a different voice, softer, almost hesitant. "Mr. Delacroix? This is Anna from the front desk. There's a woman downstairs. She's asking if anyone's found a little girl. She says her name is Mia's mom. She seems desperate." Ethan's heart jolted. He looked at Mia, still curled up in the window seat, her face pressed to the glass. He covered the phone and knelt beside her. "Mia," he said gently, "I think your mom might be downstairs. Would you like to see her?" For a second, hope and fear flashed across her face. She nodded, silent. He spoke softly to Anna. "Tell her we'll be right down. Don't let anyone else approach her." He pulled Mia's jacket over her shoulders, found her shoes. She clung to the letter, her fingers white with tension. The ride down in the private elevator was silent, both of them holding their breath. In the grand lobby, Christmas lights flickered in every corner, and guests drifted by with armfuls of presents and champagne. And at the far side of the room, by the window, stood a woman, tired, disheveled, her eyes red from crying. She looked up as the elevator doors opened. "Mia!" The girl froze for a heartbeat, then flew into her mother's arms, the letter crumpled between them. Her mother wept, rocking her back and forth, kissing her hair, whispering apologies and promises that spilled out faster than she could breathe. Ethan stepped back, giving them space, but Mia's mother looked up through her tears. "Thank you," she said, voice breaking. "Thank you. They told me no one would help. That the city was too big. But you." He shook his head, his own voice rough. "You don't owe me anything. I'm just glad you found her." She stood, pulling Mia close, tears still running down her face. "We've been on the move for so long. Shelters, friends, sometimes the street. Last night I lost her. I thought I'd never." Mia pressed her face into her mother's side, trembling. Ethan knelt to meet the girl's eyes. "You did exactly what you were supposed to. You waited. You let someone help. Mia nodded, finally letting the tears fall, safe in her mother's arms. The manager hovered nearby, nervous about the attention, but Ethan spoke quietly, making sure no one would bother them. Would you like a room for the night? He asked gently. Mia's mother looked stunned by the offer. We can't pay. He waved her off. No charge. It's Christmas. She nodded, gratitude overwhelming her. I never wanted her to see all this. I tried to keep her safe, but there's never enough. Ethan listened, hearing the stories hidden behind her words. Eviction notices, broken promises, a world that turns away from people who slip through the cracks. He looked at Mia, her eyes bright now, and felt something shift inside himself, a piece of his own loneliness breaking free. He called for the night manager, arranging a suite. No fuss, no paperwork, just a place to breathe. He slipped a business card into the mother's hand. If you ever need anything, really, anything, call me. Doesn't matter when. She took it, clinging to his hand for a second, her gratitude wordless and aching. As he watched them walk away together, Mia's small hand in her mother's, the letter still clutched tight, Ethan felt a rare, fragile hope rising in his chest. He knew their story wasn't over. Life didn't fix itself overnight. But for tonight, at least, the world had given back what it took, a mother, a daughter, and a place to rest. He lingered by the tree, letting the quiet settle around him, the hush of Christmas Eve not yet spent. The hotel hummed with distant celebration, with music and light and the promise of tomorrow. Ethan looked up at the branches heavy with glass ornaments, and for the first time in years, he believed, just for a moment, in the possibility of miracles. And somewhere behind him, unseen by most, a little girl and her mother sat on a borrowed bed, unwrapping the simple gift of being together, of being safe, of not being forgotten after all. A little girl and her mother sat on a borrowed bed, unwrapping the simple gift of being together, of being safe, of not being forgotten after all. Upstairs, Ethan wandered the suite in a silence thick with memory, unable to shake the image of Mia's face pressed into her mother's side. He tried to return to his old routines, emails, ledgers, the demands of men who never had to worry about where their children would sleep. But the quiet seemed too big now, the rooms too empty. He found himself staring out over the city, watching the lights flicker in thousands of windows, wondering how many of them belonged to families patched together by hope and luck, and how many to people still waiting for a miracle to come knocking at their door. He wondered if Mia and her mother were sleeping yet. If they felt safe. If, in the morning, they would wake and remember that someone in the world had noticed them, if only for a single cold night. As the hours drifted by, Ethan's mind kept circling back to Mia's words. Magic's just for people with homes. How many times had he himself looked for comfort in the wrong places? Work, achievement, a fortune built on the emptiness of his own childhood Christmases. He had given money, cut checks, sponsored galas, built shelters with his name on the plaque. But he could not remember the last time he had simply stayed with someone who needed it, done something quiet and real. He went down to the lobby, passing the Christmas tree still aglow. Night staff nodded, careful not to intrude on a boss who was usually invisible at these hours. He hesitated outside the suite he'd given Mia and her mother, resisting the urge to knock. He had done enough. He had done so little. Instead, he left a small wrapped box at their door. Nothing extravagant, just a new set of colored pencils, a notebook with a golden star on the cover, and a card written in his own unsteady hand. For Mia. In case you want to write more letters to the world. Merry Christmas, and thank you for reminding me what matters. Ethan. He placed the package on the mat and walked away before he could second-guess himself. Morning came late and gray, the sky heavy with another promise of snow. Ethan made coffee, let the day begin without rushing it. When he finally ventured back downstairs, the hotel was already awake. Children laughing in the halls, parents balancing gift bags and travel mugs, staff smiling through the holiday bustle. At the breakfast buffet, Mia and her mother sat in a corner booth, sharing a plate of waffles. Mia's hair was brushed, her cheeks clean and pink. She held the notebook in her hands, flipping through blank pages, her colored pencils arranged in a neat rainbow. Her mother looked up as Ethan passed. For a second, He saw the old worry in her eyes, the learned habit of bracing for the world's next blow. But then she smiled, small, real, a thank you that needed no words. Mia waved, shy but delighted, the kind of wave reserved for someone who has become a secret friend. He stopped, kneeling beside their table. "Sleep all right?" he asked, careful not to embarrass her. Mia nodded, her voice stronger than the day before. "It was the best Christmas ever." Her mother's smile trembled. "Thank you," she whispered. "We're going to look for the outreach worker later, see if we can get on the list for transitional housing. It's not much, but it's hope." Ethan nodded, thinking of the people he knew, the calls he could make. He didn't say anything right away. He just listened, letting her finish. "If you ever need anything," he repeated softly, "you call me. That's not charity. That's just community." Mia grinned, holding up the notebook. "I'm going to write a story about Santa finding kids even if they're not at home," she announced. "Maybe next year, someone else will get a miracle." Ethan's throat tightened. "I think that's a story a lot of people need to hear." They finished breakfast together, a quiet trio in a world still noisy with want and plenty. Mia insisted he try her waffle, too sweet, but perfect because it was shared. Her mother laughed for the first time, a sound that made the whole room feel warmer. As the morning sun crept higher, Ethan called the director of a nearby family center, a friend with more pull than red tape. "There's a mother and daughter," he said quietly. "They need a place. Can you make it happen?" He heard the answer he hoped for. "Bring them by. No questions asked." He told Mia's mother the news, wrote down the address, pressed cab fare into her palm before she could protest. She blinked, stunned. "You can't fix everything for everyone, you know." He smiled, tired and kind. "No, but sometimes you can fix one thing. Sometimes that's enough." At the door, Mia hugged him, awkward, brief, but fierce. She pressed a folded sheet of notebook paper into his hand. "It's a thank you letter," she whispered, cheeks red. "He promised to keep it forever." They left together, stepping out into a world that, for a moment, seemed possible again. The day passed in a blur of small kindnesses, staff giving extra cookies to children, guests leaving larger tips, the city itself softened by snow and gratitude. For Ethan, everything was a little brighter, a little less empty. The burden he'd carried all these years felt lighter. In his office that night, he unfolded Mia's thank you letter. The handwriting was messy, the spelling uncertain, but the words were steady. "Dear Ethan, thank you for helping me wait. I hope you find your magic too. Merry Christmas. Mia." He read it twice, 3 times, letting the message settle somewhere deep. That evening, as the city glowed with holiday light and the world spun on, Ethan sat by the tree in the empty lobby and watched families come and go. He realized that sometimes miracles weren't thunder or lightning or angels on rooftops. Sometimes they were just a child sleeping safe beneath a Christmas tree, a mother found, a stranger who stayed. And sometimes, that was enough to change a heart forever. The hotel quieted as the evening wore on, the last of the guests drifting up to their rooms, the lobby lights dimming to a gentle golden hush. Ethan lingered by the Christmas tree, the afterglow of the day settled around him like a blanket he hadn't realized he needed. Outside, snow softened the city's sharp edges, muffling sirens and horns into something almost peaceful. For the first time in years, Ethan let himself sit and just breathe. He reread Mia's letter, fingers smoothing the crumpled paper, and found he didn't want to put it away. The handwriting was shaky, but the hope behind it was steady. He slipped it into his wallet, right behind his mother's old photograph, a tiny, battered image of a woman with the same eyes and tired smile he saw in the mirror on the hardest mornings. He thought about what Mia's mother had said, "You can't fix everything for everyone." The truth of it ached inside him, familiar and heavy, but tonight the weight was different. Not regret, not guilt, just a kind of acceptance. He could do something, sometimes. And sometimes, that was enough. He checked his phone, just one more habit he couldn't shake. Dozens of messages, none urgent. His assistant, Paul, had left a voicemail, Saw you on the lobby cameras with that little girl. If you need me to handle any fallout, just say the word. Merry Christmas, boss. For once, Ethan didn't dread tomorrow's headlines. Let them speculate, he thought. Let them try to turn kindness into a story. He had nothing to hide. He made one more call before midnight, to the director of the family center. Did they get there? He asked. The answer was gentle. They did. Your girl's already making herself at home. Drew us a picture. Her mom's resting. They're safe. And you did good, Ethan. Merry Christmas. He hung up, feeling something warm unlock in his chest. Upstairs, his suite felt different. Still, yes, but not empty. He let himself notice the details. The faint smell of pine from the tree in the corner, the echo of laughter from the hall, the tray of untouched Christmas cookies the staff had left for him, more out of habit than hope. He ate one, dry, crumbly, too sweet, and decided it was the best thing he'd tasted in months. He didn't try to sleep. Instead, he opened the window and let the cold air bite at his face, listening to the city breathe. Somewhere out there, Mia was falling asleep in a warm bed, her mother close by, their world changed in ways both small and seismic. Somewhere out there, a version of himself, the lonely, angry kid, was still waiting for someone to come home. He stood by the window a long time, watching the snow, letting the city remind him that it was always possible to start again. The next morning, sunlight broke through silver clouds, gleaming on fresh snow piled along the avenue. Ethan dressed without rushing, let himself linger over coffee. He read the news, as always, rumors of a mystery girl in the lobby, speculation about the billionaire with a heart, a handful of grumbling opinion pieces about charity versus real change. He didn't feel the usual dread. He felt lighter. He sent a donation, anonymous, to the shelter Mia's mother had mentioned. Not just money, an offer to renovate the children's wing, to replace old beds, to cover a year of meals. He attached a note, for all the kids who wait. For the ones who keep hoping. He signed it simply, a friend. The hotel buzzed with a different energy that day. Staff stopped to chat, guests lingered over breakfast, children ran down the halls trailing bits of ribbon and joy. Someone started a collection for the housekeeping crew. The pastry chef left extra sweets at the front desk, just in case. Kindness, Ethan realized, was as contagious as loneliness. One small act setting off ripples no one could predict. That afternoon, Paul called again, this time more serious. You know, you could make this permanent, Ethan. Not just Christmas. Year-round. A room, maybe two, for families who need a safe place. You've got the space. And the heart. Ethan looked around his suite, felt the truth settle into place. Draw up the paperwork, he said quietly. Let's make it happen. Already on it, boss. Merry Christmas. The next day, Ethan stood in the lobby, watching the snow swirl beyond the doors, when he heard someone call his name. He turned and saw Mia, bundled in a too-big coat, her mother beside her, both faces brighter than before. Mia ran to him, arms open, and he knelt to catch her hug. Her mother smiled, eyes shining with new strength. We just wanted to say thank you again, she said. We're getting a room at the center, and I start work next week. It's more than I hoped for. Mia handed him another page from her notebook, a drawing this time. The Christmas tree, the hotel, 3 tiny stick figures holding hands beneath falling stars. It's us, she said shyly. So you don't forget. He promised he wouldn't. They left together, stepping into the bright day, a mother and daughter walking forward with hope for the first time in a long while. Ethan watched them go, heart full in a way he hadn't felt since he was a boy. The world outside was still sharp, still unfair, still waiting with its questions and judgments. But in here, just for now, there was room for grace. He walked back to his office, Mia's drawing in his hand, and tacked it above his desk. He looked at the simple figures, the bright colors, the stars, proof that even the smallest miracles leave a mark, if you know where to look. And as evening fell again, and the tree in the lobby blinked softly in the dusk, Ethan realized he wasn't just waiting anymore. He was home. He was home. In the days that followed, something subtle but unmistakable shifted in the world around Ethan. The Delacroix Hotel, always beautiful but sometimes cold, began to hum with a gentler kind of energy. Staff greeted him differently, with warmth and, was it pride, in their voices. The doormen started offering spare gloves to shivering guests. Housekeepers set aside forgotten toys and mittens in a basket by the lobby, in case a child needed something to hold. News of the Christmas miracle made its way through the hotel grapevine, then out into the city. Most guests just smiled at the story, but some wanted to know more. Who was the girl? Where had she gone? Would there be more like her? Ethan kept his answers vague. The truth wasn't for headlines. It was for the people who had lived it, who'd found their own hearts cracked open by a stranger's need. He noticed small acts of kindness everywhere, a server tucking a sandwich into a paper bag for a delivery driver, a maintenance man offering his own lunch to a guest in distress. One afternoon, Ethan caught the pastry chef teaching a shy teenager how to roll dough for gingerbread, no questions asked. And for the first time in years, Ethan found himself moving through his own hotel not as a ghost, but as someone present, someone necessary. People looked him in the eye. Children waved, sometimes tugging at his sleeve to ask if he'd seen Santa. He always said yes. Sometimes, he almost believed it. Late one evening, as the city settled under another blanket of snow, Ethan sat at his desk, reviewing the plans for the new family suites on the hotel's upper floor. Paul had outdone himself. Each room would have a view of the city lights, a reading nook, shelves for borrowed books and toys. Ethan made a note to add a Christmas tree to each one, no matter the season. His phone buzzed, a new message from the family center's director. A photo, Mia and her mother, side by side at a kitchen table, both smiling. The caption read, "First dinner in our new place. Mia wants to invite you for pancakes one morning." Ethan grinned, feeling something old and heavy in his chest dissolve. He replied, "Tell her I'll bring the syrup. And maybe some extra colored pencils." He thought of all the Christmases he'd spent trying to outwork his own loneliness, and felt grateful for the one that had finally stopped him long enough to see someone else. The hotel's new program grew quickly. Word spread, quietly, carefully, that Delacroix had rooms for families in need, no strings attached, just a safe place for a night or two while they found their footing. Sometimes a mother and child, sometimes a father down on luck, sometimes a teenager who just needed a bed and a locked door. Each guest left something behind, a note, a drawing, a thank you scribbled in chalk on the sidewalk outside. Ethan saved every one. On New Year's Eve, the hotel hosted its annual gala, but this year, Ethan changed things. He asked the staff to invite families from the shelter, their children wide-eyed at the lights and music. The ballroom, usually reserved for the city's elite, rang with the sound of new voices, laughter unguarded and wild. Mia was there, in a dress borrowed from the donations closet, her hair braided with gold ribbon. She found Ethan in the crowd, running up to him with a wide, unafraid grin. "Guess what?" she said breathlessly. "I have my own room now. With stars on the ceiling. My mom got a new job. And I wrote a new story. Want to hear it?" He nodded, bending low to catch her words. She told him about a girl who waited for Santa by the biggest tree in the city, and how, even when he didn't come, someone else did. Someone with tired eyes and a kind heart who brought her home instead. Ethan listened, letting her words fill all the empty spaces in him. When she finished, he clapped, beaming. "I hope you keep writing stories, Mia." She grinned. "I will. And next year, maybe I'll write one about you." Midnight came. Fireworks burst across the sky, reflected in the tall windows of the hotel. Ethan stood by the tree in the lobby, a little girl's drawing tucked safely in his pocket, and felt the world turn bright and new. He knew that life would never be free of sorrow or want, that not every miracle looked like a wish granted. But tonight, he believed more than ever that even the smallest act of kindness could change the shape of someone's world. And as he watched the families dance and laugh beneath the chandelier, Ethan finally let go of the ache he'd carried for so long. In its place, he found hope, fragile, stubborn, and shining as the stars. In its place, he found hope, fragile, stubborn, and shining as the stars. Long after the music faded and the last confetti settled on the ballroom floor, Ethan remained in the lobby, letting the quiet soak in. The world outside was blanketed in new snow, city lights blinking like distant signals in the hush of winter. His guests had drifted off, their laughter echoing faintly down carpeted halls. Even the staff had retreated, tired but grinning, their arms linked as they disappeared into the staff kitchen for a midnight toast. He stood alone by the great Christmas tree, the same one where Mia had first curled up, small and invisible, waiting for something she did not dare name. Now, weeks later, the tree was bare of gifts but richer than ever. Paper ornaments made by children from the shelter, notes of gratitude in languages Ethan couldn't read, bright paper chains stretching from branch to branch. At the very top, someone had placed a hand-drawn star with the words, "You are not alone." He reached up and touched it, feeling the rough paper, the faint grooves of a child's handwriting. He closed his eyes, just for a moment, and breathed in the memory of pine, vanilla, cinnamon, and the ghost of a childhood where miracles had always seemed meant for someone else. But not anymore. He wandered the halls, checking doors, making sure every lock was secure, every room warm. It had become a habit, something grounding, the work of hands when the mind could not rest. In one of the new family suites, he found a forgotten toy truck, its wheels worn and blue paint chipped. He set it gently on the nightstand, imagining the child who would find it come morning, the way small joys could take root in even the stoniest ground. Returning to his office, he sat at his desk and pulled out Mia's drawing and her thank you letter, reading them both again in the dim light. He looked around at the walls, once decorated with awards and blueprints, now lined with drawings, cards, bits of colored paper, a museum of hope, each piece a testimony to lives briefly sheltered by his open door. He thought of his mother, and the cold, cramped apartment where they'd lived when he was young. The nights he'd watched her cry at the kitchen table, bills spread out like a hand of cards she couldn't win. He remembered the Christmas Eve he'd waited up, listening for footsteps in the hallway, praying for a miracle, a neighbor's knock, a lost uncle, the father he'd never known. The knock never came, and in the morning, the world was the same as before. Except now, he understood something he hadn't then. Sometimes, you have to be the one who knocks. Sometimes, you have to be the miracle, even if your own hands are shaking. He sent another message to Paul, expand the program. Let's partner with the shelter, offer job training, meals, after-school tutoring. Whatever we can do. Let's make this a place for people to start over, not just pass through. The reply came quick, even at this hour. You got it, boss. Proud of you. The days after New Year's blurred into a new kind of routine. The hotel still served its usual guests, but now, between the silk curtains and shining marble, Ethan saw new faces. A young father reading to his son in the library nook, a teenage girl carefully practicing her English with the concierge, a mother brushing her daughter's hair in the corner booth of the cafe. He began eating breakfast with them sometimes, letting the conversation find its own pace. No one called him Mr. Delacroix in those moments. Just Ethan, or Sir, or sometimes, awkwardly, the kind man from the tree. He learned names. He listened. He started to feel the walls inside himself soften, the places he'd built to keep disappointment out beginning to fill with something warmer and better. He found himself waking before his alarm, eager to see who might be in the lobby that morning, whose story he might become a small, silent part of. Midway through January, Mia's mother called him, nervous but determined. I just wanted to let you know, we're moving into our own place next week. I got a job at the daycare. She's doing better. She still draws pictures of your tree, though. Ethan laughed softly, promising to visit, to bring her more paper and pencils, to keep in touch. After he hung up, he sat for a long time, letting the pride and relief flow through him like sunlight after a storm. He started a new tradition, one he hadn't planned. Each time a family moved on from the hotel, he invited them to write something, a wish, a hope, a memory, on a card and hang it on a branch of the Christmas tree, which he kept up in a quiet corner year-round. Soon the tree was heavy with stories. I hope my dad finds us. Thank you for the warm bed. I will come back to help someday. Never give up on miracles. Staff began adding their own. I am grateful for second chances. This place reminds me what matters. Kindness is a gift we all can give. Ethan read every single one. Some nights, when the city howled outside and loneliness threatened to press in again, Ethan would sit beneath the tree, reading the wishes by twinkle-light, letting their hopes anchor him in the present. He knew the program couldn't fix everything. Some families left angry, too broken to believe in kindness. Some stories didn't have happy endings, not yet. But each time, Ethan stayed, listening, offering what he could, refusing to close his heart. He began to change, too. He called his estranged sister, invited her and her kids to visit. He volunteered one morning a week at the shelter kitchen, taking out trash, washing dishes, listening to gossip and laughter. He let himself be seen. He let himself be part of something bigger. February arrived in a rush of icy rain and unexpected sun. The world outside stayed difficult, but inside the Delacroix, hope became an ordinary thing, quiet, persistent, as steady as the promise of spring. One evening, as Ethan left the hotel late, he paused at the front desk. The night manager smiled, handing him a folded paper. "Left for you, sir. By the girl, Mia. She said it's her new story." He unfolded the paper as he walked into the cold. Mia's drawing was there, and above it, in her careful, looping letters, "Dear Ethan, thank you for making room for miracles. Love, Mia." Ethan stopped in the falling snow, letting the city bustle around him, and read it twice, 3 times, until the words blurred and his breath steamed the air. It was not magic, not in the way he once believed. It was something better. It was ordinary hope, multiplied, a light in the dark, passed hand to hand, one child, one mother, one man at a time. And as the hotel's golden windows glowed behind him, Ethan realized he had not just changed the world for someone else. He had changed his own. He had changed his own. The city rolled forward, day by day, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. And yet, for those who'd seen it, who'd felt the gentle shift in the air, the Delacroix was no longer just another glass palace on the avenue. It was becoming a place people talked about in whispers, a place where something rare could still be found. News stories faded, replaced by newer tragedies and scandals, but the hotel's quiet revolution didn't need headlines. It grew in ways that didn't make the papers: a front desk agent who greeted everyone with the same warmth, a kitchen porter who left bagged lunches by the staff entrance for anyone who needed them, a guest who left behind a stack of children's books for the next little reader. Even guests who never learned the whole story found themselves moved by the atmosphere of gentle, invisible kindness. Ethan was changed most of all. He had always been present, but now he was available. He remembered names, stories, allergies, favorite colors. He checked in on families who'd moved on, writing short notes or sending birthday cards, arranging rides, vouching for a job interview if someone needed a reference. Sometimes, late at night, he'd walk past the tree in the corner, touch the paper star at the top, and find himself almost wishing for one more crisis, one more chance to show up for someone. He started to see his hotel through new eyes. It wasn't just a collection of rooms and accounts. It was a living place, a crossroads for stories, some brief, some world-changing. In February, Mia and her mother sent him a photograph, the two of them in their new kitchen, flour on their faces, pancakes burning in the pan behind them. Mia's letter, enclosed, read, "Dear Ethan, I am making pancakes just like you. Mom says I put in too much sugar, but I think you would like it. School is fun. I have a friend named Janelle. My teacher asked me to read my Christmas story out loud and I did. Everyone clapped. I hope you are happy. Thank you for not forgetting me. Love. Mia." He pinned the photo above his desk, next to the drawing of 3 stick figures beneath a star. He told himself he was not sentimental, but he caught himself reading her letters over and over, each time letting them reach a softer part of himself. As winter thawed into spring, more families came and went. Some stayed only a night, others a week or more. Each left their mark, some with laughter, some with sorrow, some with nothing more than a hurried thank you scribbled on hotel stationery. Ethan learned, sometimes painfully, that you could not save everyone. Some stories ended in heartbreak: a runaway boy who slipped out in the night and was found days later, miles from the city, a mother who returned to her abuser because it was the only life she knew. Ethan grieved for them, but did not let grief make him hard. Instead, he sat with the loss, then tried again the next day. But there were other stories, too. There was the teenage girl who left a note behind. "You don't know how close I was to giving up. You made me think I could try one more time." There was the single father who, after a month in the family suite, landed a job at the hotel, working quietly behind the scenes but always with a shy wave when he passed Ethan in the hallway. Staff began to come to him not just for orders, but for advice, for reassurance. "You're different these days, Mr. Delacroix," the pastry chef remarked, slicing apples for the afternoon tea. "I think the whole place is different. Lighter." Ethan smiled, accepting a sliver of tart fruit. "It's not just me," he replied. "We all did this. Together." He let himself participate more, not just as an owner but as a presence. He started a new ritual. Each Friday, a free meal in the staff dining room, open to anyone. Guest, staff, neighbor, who needed company. At first, people were wary. Then, slowly, they began to show up. Conversation blossomed. Children drew with colored pencils at the end of the table. A few regulars from the shelter came just to listen, to feel like they belonged somewhere, even for an hour. Paul, his assistant, suggested writing an official mission statement for the hotel. Ethan sat at his desk late into the night, the words coming slow but true. "Here, everyone matters. Here, we hold a place for hope. Here, you are not forgotten." They printed it on a card, left it on every pillow, tucked it into room keys, hung it on the wall behind the front desk. The effect was subtle, but powerful. Guests began to leave notes in return. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for the softest bed. Thank you for not treating me like a problem to be solved." Spring arrived, the city blossoming with new color. Ethan found himself looking out the window in the evenings, watching families leave the hotel and step into the brighter, longer days with something like courage in their stride. He wondered where Mia was, how tall she was growing, what stories she was writing now. He realized he was not lonely, not really. He had built a family of sorts, not by blood but by kindness, by stubborn, daily showing up. Sometimes, when he least expected it, someone would thank him, and he would almost feel embarrassed by the attention. But Mia's first letter stayed with him. "Thank you for helping me wait. I hope you find your magic too." He had. And in that ordinary, steady way, the miracle continued, one child, one night, one hope at a time. And in that ordinary, steady way, the miracle continued, one child, one night, one hope at a time. By the time another Christmas drew near, the Delacroix no longer needed holiday decorations to feel festive. There was warmth in the air now, something unbuyable, a sense that kindness was baked into the walls, the furniture, the simple acts of the people who filled its rooms. The year had turned, and so had Ethan. On Christmas Eve, the lobby sparkled, fewer expensive ornaments, more paper chains and bright crayon stars. There was a real tree, short and bushy, covered in wishes from the children who'd passed through. Underneath, instead of wrapped presents, there were bins of gloves, hats, and books for anyone who needed them. Nobody watched to see who took what. Nobody needed to. Ethan spent the day with the staff, rolling out trays of cookies, tying ribbons, sipping cocoa that tasted too sweet but made him smile. He shook hands, laughed easily, even sang a carol or two off-key with the kitchen crew. When a nervous new family arrived after dark, a mother and her two boys, the youngest clutching a battered rabbit, he met them at the door, knelt to greet them eye to eye, and personally led them to their room. There was no ceremony, no expectation of thanks. Just a quiet promise, the same one he'd made to Mia and to himself. "You are safe. You are not alone." As evening fell, snow began to drift past the tall windows, soft and silent, erasing the city's harshest corners. Guests and staff gathered in the lobby, old and young, rich and poor, sitting together around the fireplace. Someone read aloud from a battered copy of The Night Before Christmas, voices joining in when the words turned familiar. Ethan watched it all, sitting back on the sofa with a cup of tea, letting the warmth soak in. He thought of the year gone by, the children's drawings, the tears and laughter, the way one moment of seeing a child beneath a tree had unspooled into 1,000 moments of grace. A small hand tugged at his sleeve. He looked down. Mia stood there, taller now, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, her cheeks flushed with life and cold air. She grinned, and before he could speak, she hugged him, fierce and quick. Her mother waited nearby, waving hello, her eyes shining. "We came back for the tree," Mia whispered. "And to see if you still had the best pancakes in the city." Ethan laughed, heart thumping with an old, familiar joy. "You're just in time. I've been practicing all year." Mia pulled a new drawing from her coat pocket, a picture of the hotel, the tree, and 3 stick figures holding hands. This time, there were others in the background. More children, more grown-ups, all drawn together beneath the star. She pointed. "It's us, but it's everyone too. Because everyone should have a place like this." He blinked back tears, taking the picture. "I couldn't have said it better myself." Her mother joined them, pressing Ethan's hand in both of hers. "You changed everything for us. For a lot of people." He shook his head, humble. "We changed it together." All around them, families and strangers alike found seats beside one another, sharing cookies and stories, trading memories and wishes for the new year. The staff blended seamlessly with the guests, no one caring who had a room for a night and who was just passing through. The lines between giver and receiver had faded, replaced by something softer, more lasting. As the clock neared midnight, Ethan led the way to the kitchen, flipping pancakes on the griddle, letting Mia and the boys help pour the batter and scatter chocolate chips. Laughter filled the space. The scent of breakfast at midnight seemed to erase every hard thing the year had tried to leave behind. Later, sitting at the long dining table surrounded by voices, Ethan listened as Mia read her latest story aloud, her words strong and sure. "Once there was a hotel where the Christmas tree never went dark. And if you waited there, even when it seemed nobody would come, someone always did. Maybe it wasn't Santa, but it was someone just as good. Someone who stayed, and listened, and made room for hope. And in the end, nobody was forgotten. Not ever again." The room was quiet for a moment after she finished, the kind of quiet that comes from understanding something true and rare. Ethan smiled, letting the hush linger, and felt the last of his old loneliness slip away. Outside, the city sparkled, winter light twinkling on every window. Inside, the Delacroix glowed, bright, imperfect, alive. And at the heart of it, a man who had once believed he was alone sat at a table with his chosen family, a little girl's picture pinned above his heart, and 1,000 small miracles tucked into every corner of the place he now called home. Not because of money or luck or even a single act of kindness, but because he'd learned that hope, given and received, never really leaves you. And that was the best kind of Christmas magic of all.